Welcome to Meet Houston Missions and the Houston Local Missions podcast by Simmons and Fletcher. I'm the host, Paul Cannon. I'm the managing partner over at Simmons and Fletcher. We do this podcast to help promote local missions and help them find people who are interested in helping, donating time, talents, money, or whatever they have to help volunteer and promote the local community. If you want to get involved in something like this, please watch these videos, listen to them, and listen to the podcast, and just kind of figure out where you plug in and where you fit. If you would like to be a guest on this, if you have a local mission, please reach out directly to me, pcannon@simmonsandfletcher.com, and we'll work on getting you promoted. It is for Houston area local missions, and we look forward to having you. Today, we have a very special guest, Miranda Corn, the Executive Director for the Texas Gulf Coast Refuge for Women. Miranda, will you please just take a moment, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about what your organization does.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Paul, for having us. And we're just excited to be able to come on here and share a little bit about Refuge for Women. So Refuge for Women is actually a longstanding organization. It's a national organization founded back in 2009 out of Lexington, Kentucky. But our local branch of that is Texas Gulf Coast. And we've been operating, serving women in aftercare homes, women that have escaped human trafficking and sexual exploitation through aftercare programs. We've been operating at Texas Gulf Coast locations since July 2022. So just about almost going on 4 years.
Wow. Yeah, I noticed there was several different locations kind of, it looked like around the country, which just kind of sheds light on how big the problem really is with this. You are probably the fifth or sixth guest I've had on here with a human trafficking mission, and it's sad that there's that many that are needed here in the Houston area. I normally ask my guests, what does your organization benefit? But unfortunately, I've had to learn that many times over talking to other guests what y'all do and why y'all do it. So tell me a little bit about how your organization came about.
Yeah. So like I said, it was originally founded back in 2009. And our founder, Ked Frank, actually, he and his wife were going into strip clubs and ministering to women in the strip clubs, and noticed that they really wanted out of that life, but didn't have a way to actually get out, to make a sustainable living wage, to be able to have affordable housing, and then also just to get the healing and recovery that they needed from all of the trauma that they'd endured over the years. And so he opened the first home back in 2009 in Lexington, Kentucky. And then, like I said, there's been 5 additional locations that have opened since then. One of those being Texas Gulf Coast. Texas Gulf Coast actually started back at about 2019. We were formed as a board and then connected up with Refuge for Women. It formed just out of a group of women that saw the need and began just praying that the Lord would provide an opportunity for there to be a home in this area for trafficked women. And
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, now you brought up an interesting point that I think a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of these strip clubs, the participants that are involved in there aren't there by choice. They're there basically as slaves. They have been trafficked, they have been forced out of their homes and or sold into this life, and are there because somebody owns them and makes them do what they do. So you guys are taking a hard approach of trying, or at least your founders were taking a hard approach of going right into those clubs and confronting the problem where it is, which is a very dangerous way to do it, because those people, they have people who own them in that sense of the slavery sense, and that in and of itself, they don't want to lose their property. I've seen some of what happens when you tangle face to face with those people. So I really have a lot of respect for the founders and what they were doing. And I'm glad to hear that there's some refuge being created, because I know homes is a big problem. And can you tell us a little bit about that? I know you probably are familiar with the issue of how do you help these girls when you get them out of the lifestyle and then have to find a place for them to live?
Yeah, I think you hit on a great point, that it's not a choice that they're making, whether that's in a strip club, whether it's in a legal massage parlor, whether it's, walking the streets, prostitution. All of those things are a result of their, the life that has been established for them. It's not a choice. And so that's the first component, is when we open our home to these women to come in, the reality is the first thing that we want to do is just to create a space for them to feel safe. That's something that they haven't had in a long time for most of them. And it takes a while in order to build trust with the people around them, because trust is not something that they are accustomed to. And so building that trust and allowing them that felt safety in our home is just the first step in that healing process. And so, yeah, it's getting them to recognize a lot of times that it wasn't their choice. Sometimes they have been so brainwashed that even they don't realize the results of all that they've been through.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about the homes and how they kind of operate, or I guess specifically the Texas Gulf Coast home that you're involved in. How many women do you guys serve, I guess, annually, or however is easiest to calculate it, and how many people does it take to do that?
Yeah, so our program is actually made up of several different phases. So Texas Gulf Coast has two of the three phases that Refuge for Women offers. Refuge for Women offers a stabilization or emergency housing option at several of our locations. That's a 60 to 90 day program that really brings women, straight from where they have come from, whether that's out of the strip clubs, off the street, out of a safe relationship, and gives them an opportunity to just assess what are their next steps. And so that is a 60 to 90 day program. Texas Gulf Coast does not offer that specific program as of yet, but the next two phases we do offer. The first year program, we call that the restorative care program, and it's about a year long. It can be up to 15 months, but that program is solely focused on healing and recovery. And so it gives the women opportunity, like I said, to breathe, to begin to learn how to trust, to seek sobriety, because a lot of them have dealt with sobriety issues. We have an evidence-based curriculum that we use in that program. They are staffed 24/7. And so it gives them an opportunity to just take a minute, begin to kind of disregard all of the things that they have been taught about who they are, and actually begin to learn who God created them to be, who their identity is in Him versus what the world has taught them, and gives them a chance to just recognize those things. Then we offer at Texas Gulf Coast as well the second year program. And that program can be anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And it is focused specifically on economic empowerment. We realized about 7 or 8 years ago within the Refuge for Women organization that we can give them all the healing and all of the help and recovery and all of those things. But if we don't provide them with a way to make a sustainable living wage, to have affordable housing, then they're right back to the same place where they started. And so this second year program focuses on giving them an opportunity to go to school if they choose to do so, to get a skill or a trade, to begin working and building up a resume while still living in our home, getting the case management services, counseling services, all of those things still being provided for them. They begin to save money for those things like deposits and opportunities to get them prepared for independent living.
So how many women do y'all serve in your home at any given moment?
So right now, Texas Gulf Coast has the capacity to serve 6 women in each program. So 6 women in the first year program, and then 6 women in that second year. We call it the reintegration phase. And so we're able to serve 12 women at a time. Last year in 2025, we served 17 women total. So that was an incredible year for us, being able to make an impact on those women. And one of the things that I just absolutely love, we've talked about the safety component. And so for me, that's one of the biggest statistics for us, is that we were able to provide over 2,500 safe nights of sleep. We know that these women oftentimes aren't really even sleeping in general, but certainly not sleeping safely. Right. And so to offer them a chance to sleep in a bed, in a room, and sleep safely is a huge part of their recovery. And so that's a big thing for us as well. But 17 women served last year, and then 12 women at a time.
Wow. So I assume with a program like this, I know you're dealing with women who have been severely traumatized. So there has to be a certain, I guess, psychological or medical component to some of the curriculum and or healing program that goes on, correct?
Yeah, so I mentioned the evidence-based curriculum that we use. And so they'll go through anywhere from 40 to 50 books and Bible studies and things like that. We're looking at things like conflict resolution. A lot of them don't know how to deal with conflict in healthy ways. Boundaries. How do we set healthy boundaries with people? Seeking sobriety. How do we become someone that is constantly seeking that? So all of those types of things. But yes, then we also are diving deep with counselors we're focused in our program on what does their future look like, and all of those curriculum classes and all of that kind of thing. But we allow our counselors to work on their past. And so they have weekly counseling appointments as well as group counseling with all of the women in our home. Behavior health is super important in this kind of work. And so we work diligently with psychologists and general physicians to be able to make sure that we're managing behavioral health meds and things like that for them so that they can have clear and focused minds to be able to work on the trauma that they need to work on.
So I'm betting, based on what you're telling me then, that you guys probably have a pretty extensive group of both volunteers and staff people who have to be supported in other words, let me start that question over. My tongue got tied. Sorry. I am guessing that based on what you're telling me here, you probably require a significant number of not just staff members, but also volunteers in order to provide the services, the training, the skills, whether it's life skills and training, career skills and training, or just healing and recovery to all these women, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we have a staff of 15 for our location. About 10 to 12 of those are in-home program staff only. So we staff the house 24/7. So there's always someone, one or two people with the women at all times. And so yes, the staffing is super important. We look for women who are passionate about the work that we're doing and also passionate about the Lord, because we know that He is the one that ultimately changes lives. We need to provide all of these things, right? All of the physical needs, spiritual needs, mental health needs, but God is going to do that work through them. And so we want women in our program home that are truly passionate about the work that He is doing. And then volunteers, we have upwards of 75 volunteers in and out of the house on a regular basis. And that can be, we have probably 20 plus teams that people can volunteer on, everything from yard work teams. And that consists of, once a month, a group of men from a church or from a local organization coming in and cleaning up the yard, doing yard work. We also have watering teams to take care of our flower beds and the plants and all of those kind of outdoor things. And then we have indoor volunteer teams. So our teaching teams, all of those curriculum classes that I mentioned are mostly taught by volunteers. And so there's opportunities for teachers to come in. We have an art team. The residents absolutely love to do art, and that comes in all different forms. We have people that come in and do art with our residents at least 2 times a week. And that consists of anything from sewing to painting to pottery. They do it all and they love it all. So those are some opportunities. We have a cooking team that loves to come in and just cook with our residents and teach them new skills. And so those are all different aspects of working in the program home. And then we also have opportunities to work as a volunteer outside the program home. So we do events a couple of times a year, and we're always looking for people to partner with us as event sponsors, but also just volunteers to work the events the day of and set up and tear down and carrying out those events.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about some of those events and fundraisers. I believe y'all just had one recently, maybe last month. Is that correct?
We did. We had our first Houston area gala at the end of March. We had that at Sagemont Church. They were able to host us, and it was an incredible event for our first one. We had about 320 people in attendance, 20 churches represented, and I think about 10 businesses represented there. So it was an incredible event where we brought in a keynote speaker who actually was a graduate of our one of our programs back in 2011. She has actually been on staff with Refuge, but she has been a graduate of college, gone back and got her seminary degree, is married and has 2 beautiful kids. And so just to see how far someone can come when given the opportunity to have a new start and a hope and for their future is incredible to see. So that was neat.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really awesome. You mentioned that you have a lot of volunteers that come there and do work and things like that. What part of town are you guys located in?
Yeah, so we are a little bit south of Houston as far as where our program home is. We're about 40 miles south of Houston in the Angleton area, southern Brazoria County. We try and not, disclose too much about the location of the safe home, but that kind of gives you an idea. And that's strategic on our part. We wanted to have them outside of Houston a little bit just for safety reasons. As you mentioned, I think early in the podcast, Houston is one of the number 1 hubs for trafficking in the United States. And so We know that it's a huge problem here, but we also want to make sure that we are offering them a safe space. So that is why we're located a little bit further south of Houston, but still engaging in certainly all of Brazoria County and then even into southern Harris County and other surrounding counties as well.
Yeah, I know. I was just flabbergasted when I was talking to a police officer a while back who was telling me, yeah, there was 144 different brothels identified in the Houston area where human trafficking takes place. You really kind of puts in perspective how big of a hub Houston has become for this and how big of a problem it really is.
It is. It's brothels. It's the illicit massage parlor is just skyrocketing. I think the last statistic I heard on that one was that there are more illicit massage parlors in the city limits of Houston than there are Starbucks. And as you can imagine, there are Starbucks on most every corner. And so it's a growing problem. We know that, it's infiltrating every area. So yes, brothels, yes, street prostitution, but also these massage parlor businesses. And then certainly online demand is skyrocketing as well. So we're seeing it go up in every area. And we know that definitely demand is creating the problem to be even larger than what we've seen in the past.
Gosh, you would think. I mean, there was a recent law passed in the last few years in Texas making it illegal for the Johns, a crime for the Johns, I should say, to even solicit it, in addition to it being a crime to sell it, sex that is. And you would have thought that would make it trend down, but it doesn't sound like it's really helped curb demand at all.
Yeah, I think the addiction aspect of it, when we're seeing, even our young kids introduced to pornography at such a young age, it's becoming a place where we've dehumanized it, right? These people are no longer human. They're just something that is being used for what I need. And so I think when we get to that place where we're introducing, I think the average age right now is 8 years old when a boy first sees pornography. And that's the average. So you know that it's happening a lot sooner than that. And so if we're introducing our boys to that at that young of an age, then we're seeing that by the time they're adults, they have truly dehumanized what's happening behind that screen. And so it's just sadly an easy next step for them to purchase humans in a physical form when they've already been purchasing them virtually.
Well, you guys are clearly centered in the right place and for fighting this battle in the greater Houston area, I should say, and are doing the Lord's work out there trying to overcome this. And if people want to get involved, whether it's to donate, to be a volunteer, to do yard work or a fundraise or whatever, how's the best way for them to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so we do have a website. It's refugeforwomen.org. And then you would click on Texas Gulf Coast as the location that you would want to support. So there's opportunities there to support financially. And obviously that is a great need. It costs about $46,000 a year per resident to provide this program for them. And when we think of that as, a lot of money. However, pimps are making way more than that on a woman each year. And so can we outgive the pimps? I think is what we like to try and say. And also, it probably costs us more than $46,000 a year to live, right? And so that's a great way to help. We have a monthly Hope Builder program where people can give, something simple as $5 a month, but it allows us to truly plan for our budget to be able to serve these women the way that we need to. So the financial contribution is obviously one of the best ways to help. But also there's several other ways on that website to be able to help. That's through volunteering. We mentioned some of those.
I believe I saw on the website where people could actually click and go find your Amazon wish list, which would help provide direct needs directly to you guys for serving these ladies, correct?
We do. We have an Amazon wish list there. And those things can be anything from some of that curriculum that we mentioned earlier to simple basic needs of, towels and blankets and toilet paper and paper towels, which we use a lot of serving 12 women at a time. So yes, there's an Amazon wish list. There's volunteer opportunities. There's a room sponsorship program. So lots of different opportunities there on our website for people to connect and engage.
Wow. Are there any current plans for growth or involving new programs or anything that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so right now we're serving both of those programs that I mentioned, the first and second year programs. We're serving both of those programs under one roof. It's a big home. It's a 6,600 square foot home, and it is broken into two different sides. But the reality is we'd love to see the women in that second year program have a second step before independent living. And so ideally, we have a 2027 goal of having a separate home for those second year residents so that they have a kind of a next step. There's some sort of pre-independent living where we'll still be offering them services, but they'll be separated from that first year program. So that's kind of one of the goals we have. And then ultimately, long-term Refuge for Women would love to see all of our sites having all three phases of that program. So ultimately, having that emergency aspect at Texas Gulf Coast will be a goal long-term for us.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you sure have shared a lot of information with us. I always like to ask a question at the end just in case I missed something or forgot to ask something. Is there anything else about the organization, events coming up, ways people can get involved, anything at all that I didn't cover that you would like to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I would just say once you hear something like this, it can be horrific. It's hard sometimes to process all of that trauma, to know that this kind of thing is happening in the world that we live in. A lot of times, I know for me, before I began serving with Refuge for Women, I really didn't know that this was happening around me, right? I thought it was far off and in other countries and things like that. But I would say to the people listening, now that you know, take some action, and it can be a small step of just sharing the podcast, just sharing, next steps for people, just getting the word out and saying this is really happening. Or it can be connecting with Refuge for Women in one of those ways that we talked about, or even with another organization in our Houston area. I would just say, once connect, take action.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That sounds like some great advice. I really appreciate you taking time to be on the show. Once again, this has been Paul Cannon with Meet Houston Missions and the Simmons and Fletcher Local Missions Podcast. And our guest here today, Miranda Corn, Executive Director of the Texas Gulf Coast Refuge for Women. She needs your help. So get out there and learn about her on her website and her organization and what they are doing and how you can be involved. Thank you so much.